All right.
We're live.
Hey everyone, excited to do the session today with AJ. I'm sure AJ needs no introductions, but just by the way of introducing myself, my name is Praveen. I'm one of the founders of Factors.ai, and I take care of product and marketing at Factors. AJ, as you know, is the founder of B2Linked.com and one of the foremost experts on LinkedIn ads in general. Whilst I have talked to AJ many times before, this is probably one of the first times I'm seeing him when he is stationary. Otherwise, he's always kind of walking on the treadmill and working. AJ, excited to have you here. Over to you for a quick intro for our audience.
Oh yeah, and thanks so much for having me. Just as a shout out to you, so Praveen and I have gotten together on a couple of occasions just to talk shop about like the most data focused and deepest areas of LinkedIn ads strategy and product. So I'm really excited to get to present with him today. For me, I've been running LinkedIn ads now for 14 years. Just over 10 years ago, I started B2 Linked. We're an ad agency that LinkedIn ads is 100% all we do. And we're official LinkedIn partners. We've spent over 200 million dollars on the platform at this point. And I live and breathe LinkedIn ads, and I can't wait to share everything I know with you.
Yeah. So much so that AJ, you run a community which is aptly named LinkedIn Ads Fanatics.
Yeah. Yeah, anyone who wants to check it out, it's a low cost paid community to get access to all four of our courses. We do like a weekly group call with the upgraded members, and then you get to bounce ideas back and forth with all of the other LinkedIn ads fanatics who are all trying to learn and sharing what they know. That's it. Fanatics.b2linked.com.
How many people are in the community, AJ, if you don't mind me asking?
I think 86 last time I checked. And it's been, I think, almost 2 years we've been running. So some people come in, some people come out, but it's a nice community that's really active right now.
Got it. So everyone in the audience, if you're trying to up your game on LinkedIn and looking for tips from people who are, using the platform to the maximum, then the LinkedIn Ads Fanatics is probably a very good resource for you to check out. AJ, just so that I can get, just to get things started, right? So you mentioned you started B2 Linked around 10 years back. You're only focused on LinkedIn, not any other channel. Could you talk us through as to how did you decide to just go all in on one platform, and you continue to do so after 10 years as well?
Yeah, I started out my career as an SEO guy, and I got into Google Ads because I was tired of the um, the optimizations I would put into play, not being able to see the results for 4 to 6 months. So I got into Google Ads, but I never liked them. They're very tedious. And then at a previous company, I didn't even know about LinkedIn ads. It was kind of foisted onto me, and I didn't want to look stupid to my new boss. So I jumped in and started working it. And the sales team just kept coming to me saying, AJ, the leads that you're generating from LinkedIn we're fighting over them. They're incredible quality. Keep it up. And it became the best lead generating channel for this company. And over the next 2.5 years, I grew it to become LinkedIn's largest spending ads account. And after running the biggest account, having great access to LinkedIn's product team, they cared about what I had to share, my product ideas and things. I went, okay, there have to be more companies than just this one that would be a great fit for LinkedIn ads. And that's when I jumped off and started B2 Linked to be able to share everything I knew, these very enterprise level strategies with even some of the smallest accounts. And I continue to see the same results. Obviously, the platform has changed a lot. Lots of new ad formats and channels and targeting options. But still the same pieces that we loved, back then are still there. The ability to target exactly by who someone is professionally and do they fit in your ideal target audience or not. Because the leads that it generates are going to generate the leads, the exact right people that you want in your pipeline. So I love it. Even 10 years in, it still has my attention and my love.
Yeah, and 10 years is a really long time. I mean,
Yeah.
at that time, I'm presuming LinkedIn was a really small sort of social network. Now it's like a billion plus users.
Yeah.
So what are like the top things that you've seen change over those 10 years? Obviously, the scale of the platform itself in terms of the reach that you can have. But if you were to kind of roll back and look at 10 years back to now, from an effectiveness perspective, what are some of the other monumental changes on the platform?
I remember I had a conversation about 13 years ago. I set up a meeting with a director who was over LinkedIn ads. I went into the office in San Francisco to talk to him, and I pled, please give us conversion tracking, because conversion tracking is so valuable. Every other channel has it. I don't know why LinkedIn doesn't. And this, at the time, this executive crossed his arms. You could tell he's already had this conversation with people and just said, you know what? Our advertisers who are tracking conversions and are generating them, they're already tracking it somewhere else. We don't need to implement that. Thank goodness, I think it was 2017 or 2016 that LinkedIn added conversion tracking to the stable. But that's what it was. Back then, it was text ads were our only ad format. They did LinkedIn ads. No one knows this. They were the first ad platform to allow you to run video ads. If you look at a text ad on LinkedIn where your image is 100 by 100 pixels, just tiny, they allowed us for like 2 years to run 100 pixel by 100 pixel video there in the sidebar. And then no one used it, surprisingly, so they shut it down. But that was a long time ago. And then, now obviously everyone's running video, but that's what it was back then. Now I would call it a tier 1 platform. It has the vast majority of the features that we expect from an ad platform. And I hope they keep adding more, because I have a wish list of like 100 things that I want. But it's very good.
Got it. And obviously, it's for a B2B audience, which is what I expect most of our audience today to be. It's become like a go-to platform, right? It's one of the core sort of strategies for you, and it definitely part of your marketing mix. To what extent depends upon how much success you've had with the platform. And jumping right into that question around success on the platform, right? I think because it has so many knobs and levers and so many settings, it has a lot of default settings, which you got to be careful about in terms of whether they are working for you or not. I think one of the topics that you've covered in the past as well is what are some of those default settings which you should be aware of, and can significantly impact your results from the platform, right? I expect that many of the people in the audience today may not be as aware of some of these. So let's start there, AJ, in terms of just covering those top 5 things to take care of.
Perfect. Okay, I'll share my screen here. What I'm sharing is what I call the 4+1 deadly pitfalls of LinkedIn, and these are the pitfalls that if you don't know what you're doing inside of LinkedIn ads, the default is going to cause you to make a mistake. So the very first one is the geography. Geography is the first targeting question. It's required. But the default setting that LinkedIn puts on this is called recent or permanent. You won't find this in any of the support documentation, but what we find is every year, if we're targeting just the US, after the summertime, all the way for like 6 months, we'll have clients saying, hey, we know we're only targeting the US, but we're getting leads from the Philippines, from Europe, from Africa. We don't know why we're getting these. And the reason why is because what LinkedIn considers someone being recently in an area, I would expect it to be like a day or two, but it's not. It's 6 months. So if you are targeting somewhere, especially in the summer when a lot of people travel to different continents and things for trips, you'll start seeing from then on poor quality. Not poor quality. The people aren't bad. They're not worse quality. It's just you're targeting a geography for a reason, and now you're going to be getting people from outside of that. So if you just tick that little drop down and change it to permanent targeting, the only way that you get in that audience is if your LinkedIn profile says that you live in that geography. So that's number one, an easy fix for everyone who wants to try that out.
AJ, so one question here. So what you're saying literally happens is that there will be a lot of people from Philippines or India or any other country who would be traveling to US, for example, in this case. and then they go back to their home countries. But because if you have set it to resend, even if your campaign is targeting US, it would be served to all of those people who have now gone back to where they live, right? So you
Exactly.
end up getting some leads from rest of the world. Got it,
Exactly.
understood.
Yep. Next one is one that I would hope most people know by now, but there's this little checkbox that LinkedIn auto checks for you, and you have to go and uncheck it. It's called LinkedIn Audience Expansion. And what it is, think about why you come to LinkedIn. You come to LinkedIn for this amazing targeting, and we pay such a premium for that targeting. And so if you can feasibly spend your entire budget on the audience that you've chosen, then why in the world would we let LinkedIn add more and less qualified people into our audience? But that's what this box does. To give you an idea, it's the same algorithm that chooses how to expand an audience as LinkedIn's lookalike audiences were. And LinkedIn shut lookalikes down last year. They weren't working very well. Well, now we have this little checkbox that if you leave it checked, now there's no way to tell what portion of your ad engagements and traffic came from those less qualified audiences. But suffice it to say, just always uncheck that. I tell people that every time you leave it checked, someone clubs a baby seal, and we want to protect our wildlife. Don't let baby seals get clubbed.
And AJ, on this one, do you have any idea on, is it like a certain percentage of your budget that goes on the audience expansion, or it could be like a majority of your budget as well?
I think it's a small percentage. I want to say it's between 5 and 15%. But again, if you have a budget that is either right at where it takes to reach your audience, or less than, why would you let your audience be diluted in any way? It doesn't make sense to me that LinkedIn thinks that this is so important that it should be a default option for everyone, when I can literally think of 0 cases where leaving this on would be good.
Got it. Yeah, I think by default, I agree it should not be on. But for someone where, let's say, for example, your audience size is so small, right? You want to kind of experiment. Again, I think there are options like predictive audiences and so on and so forth. I agree. By default, it doesn't make sense to keep this on.
Yep, totally. Next option here is called the LinkedIn Audience Network. This is another one that LinkedIn leaves on by default, and you have to make sure it's down in placements further down the page as you're creating a campaign. And it's auto-checked. What this does is it allows LinkedIn to show your ads to people part of your target audience while they're not on LinkedIn, while they're on all these other partner pages. This sounds really good in theory, and I was really excited about it when it first came out, because who doesn't want to reach, we know people don't spend a whole lot of time on LinkedIn on average. So why not reach your audience everywhere they go? The problem that we've found is that the quality of traffic that you get from the LinkedIn Audience Network is so bad. We might pay a fraction of the cost for it, but we've seen conversion rates. Maybe you pay 1/10 as much for land traffic, but your conversion rate will drop by 90%. And so the math doesn't work out. There's a lot of bot traffic that comes from it. There's a lot of spam traffic that I'm still working to try to understand how that could happen. But if you do want to use the LinkedIn Audience Network, which we do for some clients, I would suggest do it with a block list. I released my free block list. If you look back through the LinkedIn Ads Show podcast episodes, I'll figure out which episode it is, but I did one on LAN block lists, and I shared my block list. So you can upload this in, and you're essentially telling LinkedIn, feel free to show me on other sites, but they have to be one of these few. They're like New York Times, Business Insider, like high quality kinds of publications.
Got it. I'll also look that up and probably add it into the comments of this live so that anyone who's listening in, even looking at it later, can always get it from there. AJ, one question I have on this is, because like you said, like the cost trade-off is significant, right? And I still see a lot of marketers who are comfortable moving budget from LinkedIn to other display advertising platforms, not necessarily land, but still running on very similar display inventory on programmatic exchanges. but it might be happening through ABM platforms or display platforms, right? So have you seen a difference between, so one argument is like, if those platforms are still serving and a lot of people are spending, wouldn't land be at the bare minimum equivalent to some of those display platforms as well?
Yeah, I think so. The problem that you have with any other platform, if it's not retargeting based,
Hmm.
you're leaving it up to the platform to decide who your target audience is. And I don't
Hmm.
trust any other platform for information on professionals that I do for LinkedIn. So if I have to pay, let's say my costs over just straight display are 10 times more on LinkedIn, but I can be sure that I'm reaching the right people, then I think I would still prefer to keep it on LinkedIn, even if the costs are higher. But if it is retargeting, these are the people who've been to your website. Great. Yeah. Show them ads on cheaper inventory. I hate it when someone accidentally leaves LAN on their campaigns. Their whole budget for the day is gone in 20 minutes. It was all eaten up by 2 Android apps that you can tell were fishy. The results look really good. You have a 3% click through rate and you paid $1 per click, until you realize that no good is ever going to come from that traffic because it wasn't real people. So use that block list. Make sure you're cutting out the bots and just using the best sources.
Got it. Let's continue, AJ.
Okay, perfect. The last one, and we're going to go deeper into this, but the last mistake that I see advertisers making is they use the default option in bidding. The default option is called maximum delivery. And what this is it's a CPM bid. So LinkedIn is going to charge you every time they show your ad. It's not based off of people clicking or actually showing intent or engagement towards your ads. And this is the most expensive way to pay for your LinkedIn traffic 90% of the time. We'll go deeper into this, but it's like if you leave this on by default, you left it on by default. If you have a campaign that's getting just a standard click-through rate, your costs, your effective cost per click is going to be oftentimes more than double what it would have been if you were bidding by cost per click. So I always recommend with a new campaign, switch to the third option. They only show 2 options, and there's one that says, show me more options. When you click that, then you'll see manual CPC bidding, and then that's where I would suggest starting because it's the cheapest way to pay for your traffic.
Got it. And as you said, we will go deeper into this specific topic, but at a high level, I think other than a minority 10% of the cases, you're saying start always with manual bidding. And then
Yep.
there are some exceptions, which we will cover in the later part of this webinar as well, where it does make sense to move to maximum delivery, right?
Yes.
But again, this is kind of buried deep down in the settings, like 2 clicks away. So need to kind of work your way till there.
And what's beautiful about bidding, you can change your bidding model constantly. You could change from maximum delivery to CPC today and then change it back tomorrow. You can adjust your bid 3 times today. I wouldn't suggest that because then you won't actually learn what was making a difference. But you can make these changes all the time. You can't make budget changes the same way. If you change a budget right now, LinkedIn's not going to actually put that into force until the end of the day, which is midnight UTC time. But bidding, we have a lot of freedom on.
Got it. Understood. What is the last one? The 4+1.
Well, the +1 is what I think we want to dive into a little bit later, which is, okay, you've already chosen a cost per click bid because you want to save some money, but now we have a whole bunch of other nuances to how do you actually choose what size your bid is. Do you bid aggressively? Do you bid low? Do you follow LinkedIn's recommendations? So let's plow on to that one as we get to it because it's a little bit deeper of a subject.
Agree. I think bidding, we definitely need to kind of cover that a bit later in detail as well. AJ, moving on. So many of the audiences, many of the customers that I have are largely using LinkedIn for ABM campaigns, right? So they have a target account list, let's say 1,000 to 2,000 to let's say 5,000 accounts that they are targeting. Again, what are some of the common pitfalls that you've seen happen with customers who are running largely ABM campaigns on LinkedIn?
Yeah, the biggest challenge that I hear people face with ABM, and this is also a challenge that I faced early on, is I compiled a list. This is just for ourselves as an ad agency. We knew we wanted to reach enterprise level spenders who would want to spend on LinkedIn. And so we targeted many of those who were already spending a good deal on LinkedIn. And that included people like Google, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, but it also had a whole bunch of other smaller companies. And we launched these ABM campaigns, and we definitely spend the budget. It was no problem. We'd go back and analyze in LinkedIn's demographics, and then we found that those three top ones, Google, Facebook, and I think Twitter at the time, like 96% of my impressions went to those three companies, and that means none of the other companies were even getting hit by the ads. And those three companies, they're huge. Every single employee who's in the sales organization of these ad reps, they're going to show up as marketers. And so for me, I wasted so much money targeting a Google ad rep. And so I eventually broke them off into their own campaign where I could target just them. They were very poor performers, but I had to break them away because they were just stealing too much budget.
So just to clarify, so you're saying these three companies took up around 98% of your impressions in that particular campaign, and you were targeting a much larger list. I'm assuming hundreds of companies.
Probably. Yeah, I think it might have been something like 400 companies, and yeah, it was just a total waste, total wash for us, and yeah, didn't love that.
Yeah, and this is something that I have actually seen with a whole majority of our customers as well at Factors. As some of you might know, we are a LinkedIn audience ABM platform. We help you run better campaigns on LinkedIn. And we have a very specific feature called Smart Reach, which actually helps you solve for this problem, right? Very quickly, kind of showing some statistics based on this. AJ, is my screen visible now?
I'm not seeing it yet. Oh, here it comes. Yep, there it is.
Yeah. So these are some of the numbers that I just wanted to kind of cover today. So just kind of going into full screen. So for one of our customers, right? So before Smart Reach, like the top 25% of the accounts that they were targeting were consuming around 95% of your impressions, right? So imagine you're a ABM marketer, you've finalized a list of 1,000 companies that you want to target. You've aligned with the sales team. Your sales team is also reaching out to these accounts. You have also loaded it up into LinkedIn to run your campaigns. You're expecting that all of these 1,000 companies would be seeing your ads to a certain level. Your brand awareness amongst these accounts would be increasing so that either they will come inbound with an inquiry, or when your sales team is reaching out, they at least remember your brand, so they pick up that call and listen to the pitch, or they reply to that email. But what really happens is around 25% of your accounts in that list take up around 95% of your impressions. So for the remaining 75% of the accounts, they are hardly registering your brand or building that awareness about you, right? Now, post Smart Reach, what we are able to do for these customers is ensure that you have a lot more control over this, wherein these heavy hitters, and again, these are the usual suspects, right? Like almost all my customers, we typically see Microsoft taking up around 5% of the budget. Salesforce takes up another 5 to 10%, and so on, like Google, Facebook, and so on, right? What you're able to do is ensure that these big whales or heavy hitters, the amount of impressions that they consume are controlled as compared to just being free for all, right? Again, what for this particular customer, what happened was that 77% of their accounts were actually seeing less than 20 impressions per month before Smart Reach. Now we are able to kind of ensure that a lot more accounts are actually seeing your ads. And consequently, your performance from these campaigns would be improving as well, because a lot more accounts are now aware about your brand, right? Moving on, what we've also seen is that the number of accounts which actually visit your website after seeing these ads, it almost doubled for this customer, right? So pre-Smart Reach, around 600 accounts were actually coming back to your website and checking out your content, which is what you want them to do after they are aware about your brand. But post Smart Reach, with the same budget, what you're able to do is you're able to drive a lot more awareness, and a lot more of these accounts checking you out, right? And your CPMs actually kind of decrease purely because you're putting more controls in the way your budget is spent. So you're essentially saying, don't try to spend the budget on the first person who matches the criteria and comes into the feed. Try to look for accounts who have not really seen our ads. And this actually results in a reduced sort of CPM as well, which kind of is like a added advantage, right? So if you're running ABM campaigns, and as I said, you've invested in building that list, aligning with sales, and you're using LinkedIn as one of your primary channels to reach out to these accounts, one of the pitfalls that you're probably running into, which is causing your campaign effectiveness to be lower than what it should be, is the fact that not all of those accounts are actually seeing your ads, right? In fact, around 20-25% of those accounts are seeing your ads, the rest are not, right? AJ, let me stop sharing here. Is this something like you shared your experience earlier, but is this something that you've observed for your clients as well?
Yeah, and this is awesome. So to give everyone an idea here, the problem that so many ABM marketers face is this challenge of like a few companies eat up all your budget. And as a marketer, no matter how advanced you are, there's nothing you can do about that. But as I understand it, what Factors does is it's monitoring how many impressions are going to each company, and then it's removing that company for the rest of the day once it hits that criteria. I can't do that no matter how good I am. I can't do that manually. That's something that I'm really, really excited about Factors being able to do. And so congratulations, Praveen, on building such an awesome feature that we can't do ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, technically, it's just so painful to kind of do it, right? You could go into the campaign manager and do it, but then it's just not scalable, right? If you have like 50 campaigns, how would you do it? And it's one of those things where I'd say it's like a net positive for everyone. Your ads are reaching more accounts, you're driving more brand awareness. LinkedIn as a channel starts performing for you much better than it used to before, which gives you the confidence to scale on LinkedIn as well, right?
Yeah.
So ultimately, what we are all looking for is a channel where we can scale our efforts in terms of demand generation, in terms of driving that awareness. LinkedIn is definitely one of those platforms that we should be looking at, but you just need to kind of take care of some of these things so that you are leveraging the platform to the hilt, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so that is one thing. Please definitely check out AdPilot, which is our suite of offerings related to this. AJ, moving on, another thing that we have discussed in the past is the idea of using native filters on LinkedIn to do company lists versus bringing in company lists from outside the platform, right? And the last time we spoke, you had mentioned that you mostly recommend that you should be bringing your list from outside. So could you kind of talk to that as well?
Yeah. When you use LinkedIn's targeting, we get access to like this job title in this geography at this industry of company and this size of company. And all of those are great, but especially if you're using industry, you're going to find a lot of problems there where industry targeting is leaving it up to the company themselves to categorize what they're in. And that's really difficult because so many software companies, like let's say a SaaS company, they're left with this decision. Do we call ourselves a software company or do we call ourselves an advertising technology, things like that. And so by using those filters, it's going to leave a lot to be desired. Whereas if you can bring your own list from a source that these are fantastic, these are the right companies, LinkedIn takes those great. The problem that we find is when you bring company name data or even contact level data into LinkedIn, there's a match rate and a potential match rate issue. So if you bring, let's say, company names from a different source, LinkedIn might look at it and say, oh, I.B.M. We don't recognize that. We see IBM, but they may not match that up. So if you can bring in the field of LinkedIn company page URL, LinkedIn goes, oh, that belongs to us. Of course we recognize it. And then you can get 100% match rate that way. But yeah, that's depending on the source of your data. If you can get a really high quality list, and you can get it into LinkedIn, I would trust that way more than I would trust, just LinkedIn's, especially industry targeting.
Yeah, I think on the industry side, definitely something that we've run into for our own campaigns, as well as something our clients face as well, right? And a few examples that I remember are, for example, I think Spotify is categorized under something called musicians or something like that. Airbnb is software development, and not like a marketplace, right? And again, it is a function of what the person who set up the Airbnb page at that time has probably put their categorization as. I believe ADP, for example, is categorized under human resource services, not like a software company, right? Human
Wow.
resource services is not something that you would target if you're targeting like technology companies, and ADP is definitely like a technology company, right?
Yeah.
So on the industry targeting list, I definitely agree that a better approach would be to build out the list outside, probably load it up into your CRM, and then kind of sync it into LinkedIn. One thing I would recommend is definitely to further filter down the list by looking at website intent as well, and bring in like an intent based audience. So what I've seen is that primarily LinkedIn as a channel is an awareness channel, right? So people are not on LinkedIn to really kind of buy software in that sense. So most of the people there are not actively in a buying journey. So if you can filter down for some of these intent audiences based on your website activity, or any third party intent signal, it could be G2 or it could be any other sort of software review sites as well. That could be one way to kind of again improve the performance of your campaigns. And what we have seen at Factors is for our customers who start using these intent based audiences, we typically see like a 30 to 40% sort of improvement in their performance, right? So again, there is a audiences capability which is part of our LinkedIn Ad Pilot suite for anyone who's looking to kind of start out your LinkedIn campaigns with an intent based audience. That's something that I would again strongly advise you to check out and experiment with, right?
And
And what we also do is we take care of the company URL and so on to ensure that the match rates are high. Sorry, AJ, you were saying something.
yeah, and if I can add on to this, Praveen, you're talking about intent-based audiences, but I also, when you hear intent-based audience, I want all of you to also be thinking about your website visits retargeting audiences, because they're essentially the same thing in this case. What goes into a website visits retargeting audience on LinkedIn? They visit your website. Your website has the LinkedIn Insight tag on it, and so it tags the person and says, "Oh, you've been here," in a cookie. Then that user leaves your website, and now half of the browsers out there, I mean, certainly anything that's any Apple device, is just going to toss that cookie either immediately or within a few days. And so the next time you come back to LinkedIn, LinkedIn is looking for that cookie to see if you belong in a retargeting audience, and it doesn't see it because your browser threw away the cookie. So now your website visits retargeting audiences, you can think of them like a leaky bucket. You invest into them, everyone who's there, and you go, great, I want to keep showing you ads. But those audiences keep leaking, and sometimes they'll leak faster than you can build them, so you never have an audience that's big enough to actually run. Whereas what Factors is doing by capturing this intent, when someone visits your website, they identify what company they represent through lots of different signals, and then now that's recorded inside of Factors. And now Factors pushes an ABM audience right into LinkedIn totally dynamically, and that is your website visits retargeting. And it can never be erased by a cookie. It's going to live because you have that data forever. So I'm a huge fan of this. Obviously, it's going to push a company list into LinkedIn, and so you're going to have to add other criteria. I like job function and seniority on top of that, just to make sure that you're hitting the right kind of person in that company who would have visited your website. But it is the antidote to LinkedIn's website visits retargeting requiring a cookie. In the future, when cookies are no longer a thing, Factors is still going to be able to nail that.
Yeah, and I think the problem with cookies is there are so many reasons why the cookie sync with LinkedIn may not happen, right? Like the person might have blocked the cookie consent banner, which kind of blocks LinkedIn pixel from loading on the website, so you can't sync the cookie. They may not have logged into LinkedIn from that browser. So effectively, and as you said, they might just clear their cookies eventually, and hence kind of you lose that audience size.
Yeah.
So by doing this at a company level and then ensuring that you're targeting the right job titles, you are able to cover your entire buying group in that company. And as
True.
AJ mentioned, we take care of dynamically updating the audience. The first time, I think it takes like 1 or 2 days to kind of upload the audience into LinkedIn. But after that,
Yep.
every day we ensure that the company lists are actively updated on LinkedIn, right? So that's another sort of nifty feature that you should check out. Now, moving to the bidding section, AJ. So we briefly covered this in terms of actually before bidding. I think one more thing that we wanted to talk about was the going back to your story 10 years back of you wanted conversions capability into LinkedIn. LinkedIn recently launched a conversions API. Through which you can send online and offline conversions into LinkedIn, right? Again, how is that? Does that? I know it's probably kind of it's a relatively new feature from LinkedIn side, but it's been there on other platforms, and I'm presuming it's something that should be helpful for most customers. What do you think?
Yeah, I love the concept of CAPI for Conversions API. This makes a ton of sense. The goal is, let's say that conversion tracking on your website, it is reliant on a cookie. And so let's say you lose 20 to maybe 30% of your conversions that should have been attributed to LinkedIn, but aren't. Because of this cookie issue. So LinkedIn comes out with this feature that says, hey, when someone fills out a form, you can pass that data back to us and then we'll match it and fill in any gaps. Again, sounds great in theory, but realize that most B2B companies, when someone fills out a form on your website, they are filling in their professional email address, which is great. It's what sales wants. But when you pass that conversion back to LinkedIn with professional emails, not the personal emails that they log into LinkedIn on, you're going to end up with something like a 30% match rate. You can test this for yourself. Go take all of your business emails that you've gotten, go and create a contact list on LinkedIn with just those, and you'll see whatever the match rate is, that's how many of the conversions LinkedIn would be able to match up. So what you're trying to say is, my conversion tracking is only capturing 70%. Let me augment that with something that can only categorize 30%, and there's a lot of crossover. So CAPI, not great on its own, but here's where you can make it match 100%. Every time someone clicks on a LinkedIn ad, in the URL, there's a parameter called LI-FAT ID with underscores in between it. That number represents who they are. It's their user ID on LinkedIn. So if you can set up your website and your technologies to capture that parameter, and then when someone fills out the form, it sends it back to the Conversions API, LinkedIn does not even need, like there could be misspellings in the name. They might not recognize the email address, but by golly, they were the ones who issued that ID. That's 100% match rate. So if you're going to do Conversions API, make sure you don't ignore that LinkedIn FAT ID. Find some way of capturing it. And this is something I'm going to be talking a lot about here in the next few months. So if you're curious about it, follow me, reach out. I'll have some solutions.
Yeah, and what I've heard from the LinkedIn team as well is that they're heavily investing into using conversions API signals into campaign optimization. So again, going with the theme of the six LinkedIn ads hacks for 2025, I think implementing CAPI and ensuring that you're giving as much conversion signal as possible back into LinkedIn. That would be something that you can just do to ensure your campaigns are auto optimized by LinkedIn's algorithms, right? And as AJ mentioned, I think two tips I'd add is definitely you should be capturing the LinkedIn FAT ID. You should be sending as much data as possible from the website for people who click on the ad. Very, very important for your website actions campaigns, where you are driving that traffic to your website, right? And obviously, on top of it, you can also send your CRM data in terms of any offline conversions, email responses that you're getting, and LinkedIn would obviously try to match it to the best possible extent. But then, as AJ mentioned, there are always scenarios of names not matching and so on and so forth, right? So capture both the website data and the CRM data, send it back as much as possible in terms of conversions. And that's something that would immediately improve your campaign performance. And from what we know, in the next 6 months, you would have a lot more optimization levers in LinkedIn, which rely on CAPI. So I think it would be a good time to set it up now so that you can benefit from it later, right? One pro tip I'd also give is start sending conversion values in addition to just the conversion event. And typically the customers that we work with, the way they do it is they look at an ICP tiering of companies, and then based on the ICP tier of a converted user, you start sending a conversion value back into LinkedIn as well, which helps you kind of optimize campaigns. And again, Factors offers a full-fledged CAPI integration as part of our ad pilot suite, where we can kind of take care of your website data, CRM data, conversion values, and send all of that back into LinkedIn. So that's something that I'd again strongly recommend everyone to consider, either directly through, you have multiple ways to send it, like through Google Tag Manager, you can implement it and get it done. But yeah, however you want to do it, CAPI is something that you want to get started on, purely because it seems like a major priority for LinkedIn as a signal to optimize campaigns.
And LinkedIn will automatically deduplicate. So if you have a conversion that LinkedIn does see in its conversion tracking, and then it sees the same conversion come from your CRM, it's going to not count it as two conversions. It's going to count it as one. Makes your data a lot cleaner.
Yeah. And I expect that just like the other platforms, just like Google and others are doing, where they're moving towards a more automated sort of conversion-based sort of optimization, I expect LinkedIn would just generally be rolling out a lot more of these functionalities. So yeah, this is something that if you've not done already, I think something that would definitely be give you an advantage in that marketplace. AJ, moving on to the last one, we touched upon it briefly. I'm sure that's something which a lot of people have questions on the bidding strategies. I know there are multiple bidding strategies on LinkedIn. For a new person, it's really overwhelming to kind of figure out the nuances of this. When should I use what, etc. And I know no one better than you to kind of give an overview of this.
Yeah, I'm so happy to share. I will shout this for the rooftops till the day I die, which I hope hopefully very far in the future. What happens is if you select I want to bid by cost per click, a manual bid, then the next thing that LinkedIn advertisers are faced with is a crazy suggested range. What'll happen is LinkedIn will say it'll autofill the box in with something nuts like $18 or $19, and then it'll give you a range and say your competitors and other people like you are bidding between $40 and $90 per click. So try to bid in that range. And even if you talk to your LinkedIn rep, any rep, even some of the most seasoned, they don't understand this. They have this concept of if you bid low, you're scraping the bottom of the barrel and you're going to get worse quality of leads, worse quality of conversions. And I faced this early on. I think this was back in 2016 or 2017. I ran 3 different tests that totaled over 100,000 in spend. We had very large spending accounts who we were able to track direct lead quality based off of bid. So we did a period where we bid purposely higher, we overbid, and then we bid significantly lower, and we bid in the middle. And over all 3 of those, we tracked what our lead quality was and our cost per lead quality. And in all cases, there was not a single element of by bidding higher or bidding lower, did it change your lead quality? So when LinkedIn reps will tell you by bidding more aggressively, you get access to higher quality members, push back on them and say, I want to see the data, because I've done the data over 100K in spend, and I have not found that to be the case. So blatantly ignore LinkedIn's suggested ranges. That they are not based in reality. Instead, what I recommend is go down into the bidding section, erase whatever they put, and start with something that you would consider quite low. I like to start, if I'm targeting North America, I'll start with maybe a $7 per click bid. And what'll happen is if I let that run for 2 or 3 days, if I was not bidding aggressively enough to get traffic, I will just see very few impressions and I won't spend my daily budget. But if I did pick a correct bid at $7 and it allows me to spend my whole budget, I just found the holy grail. I found the lowest amount I need to bid to still spend my entire budget every day for that campaign. And I generally like to set my budgets a little higher, maybe like 30% higher than what I actually want them at, just so I can see, if I start bidding at $7 and I keep hitting my budget, that could have been I was bidding just enough to spend my last cent at the end of the day, or it could be that sometime during the day I hit my budget and then LinkedIn took me out of the auction. So I might actually be able to bid more like $6.50 or $6 and still do what I want to do. So that's the best recommendation I have for you. If you follow this criteria, check on it every 2 or 3 days, make minor adjustments to your bids. This is the key to probably cutting your costs in half on LinkedIn, and it's not going to affect the quality of your traffic. If any of you do find that it affects quality of traffic, please reach out to me and let me know. I'm always open to correction, but that's what I found.
Got it. So AJ, I get what you're saying in terms of like the ranges are definitely on the higher side, right? So you're saying start with, for North America, let's say $7, $8, some number like that. At best, what happens is the first 2 days you may not spend your budget, but then you can get to a point where you're optimally sort of bidding. Yeah. And the psychological fear is that if you bid low, you don't get executives and VPs and so on, and you probably end up spending your budget on pockets of the audience where the auction density is very low, right? That's a sort of general sort of wisdom of the crowd on this one. But what you're saying is on 100K of spend, you did not see a difference on the demographic profile and the lead quality when you tried out various, like just the bare minimum sort of bids.
Yeah, the way you combat this is when you build out campaigns, segment them out by levels of seniority. So for instance, if I do the same $7 bid on a campaign that's targeting just C-level, the same one for VP, the same one for manager, the same one for director. I did those last 2 out of order, but you get the idea. What I'm going to find is what is the bid that is required of me to reach this level of seniority. And if your bid was too low for C-level, but it was just right for VPs, then you can go and increase your bid slightly and get more of the C-level audience that you're looking for. So that's the way around it.
Got it. So break out your campaigns, but still try to bid differently. And then you can see for yourself if you're getting a C-level audience at $7 or $8. So you don't have to have this irrational fear. You can test it out. There is nothing stopping you.
Exactly.
Got it. Now, the other question that we discussed was don't do maximum delivery by default. Try manual CPC as well. And I know that's a topic as well where you have a lot of guidance on how do you make that decision, in what scenarios would you make an exception, and so on. So can we just cover that as well?
Yeah, so this might get a little technical. So I apologize for any of you who are like me, who did not pass your college economics classes, but I'll share my screen here. What I'm going to show you, this is a graph that represents how LinkedIn is charging you based off of whether you're bidding by cost per impression or cost per click. It's not showing up on screen yet, is it?
No, it's not yet showing up. Yeah, it's coming up.
Okay, cool. All right. So what you're looking at here, the bottom axis, the x-axis is your click-through rate on an ad. And this specifically is your link click-through rate. That means it's not your click-through rate if you are using the brand awareness or the engagement objectives or even lead generation. This would be just if you were using website visits or website conversion, but that's your link click-through rate. And then the y-axis here is your relative level of spend. So what we're trying to show here, the curve that starts at the top left and ends at the bottom right, this is your effective cost per click if you're bidding by CPM. And the other one that starts bottom left and goes upper right, this is your effective cost per click when you're bidding by CPC, by cost per click. And what you notice is right there about that 0.4%, that's the average, the benchmark click-through rate for a LinkedIn ad. And this hasn't really changed. Like it's, somewhere between 0.4 and 0.46, depending on the benchmark study you look at. What you'll notice is the curve of how much you're paying when you are bidding by CPM at the benchmark is considerably higher than what it is if you were bidding CPC. What this means is by all else held equal, if you are an average performer on LinkedIn, if you are bidding by CPM, you are paying more per click than you would if you were bidding by CPC. And where this converges, where it shifts, it's usually between that link click-through rate of about 0.8 to 1.2%. It depends on the competition level of an audience. But it's around that point where all of a sudden now it doesn't matter whether you bid CPC or CPM, you're at break even, you're gonna pay about the same. Where this breaks away and gets you a huge benefit, every once in a while we'll launch an ad that gets an incredible click-through rate, not using the audience network. These are all like, clicks only on LinkedIn anyway, that's what I'm saying, all on LinkedIn. We'll get an ad that will get like a 2% or a 3% click-through rate to the link. Looking at this graph, if I were still bidding by cost per click, I would actually level out. I would pay basically, close to what I was bidding. Whereas if I would have been bidding CPM, my effective cost per click would have gone lower and lower the higher my click-through rate is. So here's the rule that I follow. It's like, I try to just remember it in the back of my mind. If my link click-through rate is over 1%, that's when I consider switching something back to maximum delivery bidding. And you might get into cases with very small audiences. Let's say they're ABM audiences that tend to be quite small, or retargeting, where maximum delivery realizes for a small audience, it has to bid really high. Maybe that it doesn't work, but you can always do a manual CPM bid and cap it a little bit lower. But I know that might be a little technical. Does that clear things up? Praveen, do you have any questions about that effect?
No, I got what you're saying to say that maximized delivery really works for you in maybe one or two scenarios. One scenario is that your click-through rate is actually above 0.8% or 1%, the link click-through rate. And the second is, as you said, your audience is so small, or you have a campaign which you just have to run in like 2 days or 3 days, and then maybe you just want to kind of put it on maximum delivery. But for your steady state campaigns that you're running on LinkedIn, unless your CTR is link click-through rate is more than 0.8%, you're better off bidding CPC. And from our discussions in the past, AJ, what I've heard from you is that if you're doing maximum delivery, you're probably paying 2 times, ballpark, given that the average CTR on LinkedIn is around 0.4, 0.5%.
Yeah, these are all of the bidding tricks that I've taught here. This is what we do when we bring on accounts. And we're currently averaging, when we bring on an existing advertising account and convert it to our own methodology, we usually watch costs per link click and cost per conversion drop by about 57%. So I'll tell you, in the vast majority of cases, at least 90+%, following this methodology will save you a lot of money. And like we've discussed, it's not going to hit your lead quality, so you don't have to worry about that.
Got it. So then at a high level, two tips that I took away, AJ. One was max delivery works in certain scenarios, but majority of the time manual bidding is what was advisable. Within manual bidding, rather than going for the default ranges, try to see what is the lowest that you can spend. Incrementally increase your bids by $0.5, $1 till you are expanding your budget. You should not be worried about whether you're just focusing on a small subset of the audience that has not been your experiences at least. And I think a couple of people in the audience actually agreed. I think one person at least confirmed that they've also tried this out and they've not had a problem of lead quality when they've not really. I think it was Elaine who said that he's got very similar results on that. AJ, there are a couple of questions. Shall we quickly cover those as well? In fact, there are a few questions. So shall we quickly cover those?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Uh,
And I'll throw this out there. If you loved this conversation and you want more, let us know topics you want us to cover. We can easily come back and do a round 2 of this. So please enter it into the comments, the questions, Q&A, whatever you've got.
Yeah, so you can leave the comments later, or add it into the Q&A, be it about creatives, be it more advanced bidding related discussions. We're happy to kind of get on another call and cover those as well. Let me just go through the questions here. Um, uh, building. Yeah, I think a lot of people are agreeing on the whole list building capability. To say, yeah, almost all of them seem to be or not all of them, like at least a couple of people who have commented here seem to agree that list building outside saved them a lot of money, and they kind of strive towards 100% match rates. One user has asked this question, AJ, on is there a tool which can populate a list with company page URLs to make it easier? So what do you do, like when you get company domains and you want company page URLs? How do you actually go about doing that?
Oh, this one's hard. I know there are providers like Zoom Info and other like list providers who can surface this. What I personally do, there's a website, I think it's called Free People Labs or something. It's a data aggregator. If you go through and look at their products, they have a free data set it's a company data set. And once a year, I'll go and download this. It's an Excel sheet, a CSV that is considerably longer than 1 million rows. So what you have to do to even get Excel to recognize it, you have to filter the list before you bring the data in. So it's a lot of work and it's a lot of technical work, but that can get you a list of all companies, and then you could do some kind of a fuzzy match against that. But Praveen, how do you do it? Obviously, you guys do it with factors, and do you have any recommendations outside?
Yeah, so what we do is when we are building lists and syncing into LinkedIn, so we try to match on the domain name, and then try to find, again, we have access to lists which have the company domain and the LinkedIn company page URL. And then we try to add that information when we are sending it into LinkedIn. Obviously, there are still some nuances, like, as you know, like when some of these companies set up their LinkedIn pages, they put it as /careers or something like that, right? So there are still a little bit of nuances, but we are able to kind of get to a very high level of match rate because by just fetching the company page URL and sending that, rather than in addition to the domain, company name, and other information as well, right? But I think I think there should be free databases around the company name and company URL. But what we'll also do is again try to find a link which we can add into the comments over here, so that it's available for anyone else who might be watching this later. Manually bidding myself made sense for my industry. Fiverr has been useful if the data is easy to find,
Ooh,
because a freelancer could do it on a lower budget. That's something. So Fiverr seems to be another option to build lists as well. So again, depending on whether you're building a list of like 1,000 companies or 5,000 companies, that might be another option to consider as well. And I think, AJ, one of your podcasts had like the upload template that you use. So I
yeah,
again try to find the link to that and add it into the comments over here, so it's easier. Uh,
fantastic.
Another user says, depending on the size of the list, it takes time to compare. Uh, uh, I think the point here was to say, depending on the size of the list, it kind of takes time if you to upload. I think it typically is like 2 days for the first run. AJ, is that what you have noticed as well?
Yeah, LinkedIn has always said 24 to 48 hours for a list to process. For a long time, it was like 72 hours every time. But in the last probably year, I've seen it actually be between 24 and 48 hours to clear.
Got it. Got it. Understood. Understood. Um, One question here is, for campaigns focused on awareness, what is a good CPM to aim for initially? I presume this is probably like a nuanced question depending on the targeting, but
I,
any thoughts, AJ?
I actually have a very passionate answer about this, and that is please never ever run a campaign in the brand awareness objective on LinkedIn. It's an absolute waste. When I run an ad that I know the goal is brand awareness or the goal is engagement, I'm not going to put brand awareness or engagement as my objective. I'm still going to do it as website visits if I have somewhere to send them. And the reason why is because that optimization is not worth what you have to pay for it. My my goal, even though if it's brand awareness, I still want someone to not only be aware, but to show a level of engagement. And so if I'm only watching my CPM, it gives me no idea of how engaged someone is in my ads and if they're doing anything. But instead, even if it's a brand awareness objective, even if it's a brand awareness play for you, I'm going to make it a website visits objective and bid by the landing page click. I'm still going to get the impressions that I'm looking for. I'm still going to get a good CPM if I'm bidding right. But I'm also going to pay the least amount for those clicks that I got. And that's a better measure to me of how engaging and how good at bringing awareness my ads were, because I got to see that they took an action after that. So long answer, but that's my recommendation.
Got it. So basically, don't use brand awareness. Is there any exception to this rule? Let's say for some ad formats, like a thought leader ads or something like that, would you try differently? Is there any scenario where you would break this rule that you follow?
The only time I will use brand awareness objective is when I'm running CTV ads, because that's the only objective that LinkedIn will let us run CTV in, and it makes sense there. But brand awareness, the only way that you can bid is maximum delivery or by CPM. And like we've established, CPM bidding is the most expensive way to pay for your traffic so much of the time. I mean, at the very least, use the engagement objective. The engagement objective will let you pay by the click or bid by the click. But their definition of what a click is so broad. It's every time someone clicks a hashtag or see more of the ad to read more of your text or like or comment or click to your company page, all of those things counted as a click. And so even though the click cost is lower, they really add up over time. But if you were to use the website visits objective, now all of those other clicks are free. The only thing you pay for are those who end up clicking to your website. And so if you measure it on a cost per landing page click, a cost per engaged click, website visits is going to be a much better buy, probably 99% of the time.
Got it. Just a couple more questions, AJ. I know we are over time. Are you okay to extend by another five minutes?
Yeah, totally.
I think one question was, what if we don't want to use the conversions API due to legal issues? And I think the same user has said the legal issues is they probably don't want to connect their CRM into LinkedIn directly, probably because of security reasons or other policies. So we have a couple of clients who are in a very similar scenario where they just don't have the permission to connect Salesforce to LinkedIn. So as AJ mentioned, my thoughts on this are that there are two parts to the conversions API, right? So there is website signals, which you definitely have to capture and send to LinkedIn. You can use a Google Tag Manager based implementation to send it directly from the website. Now for the CRM data, again, you can use a solution like a Zapier or something like that to send the CRM data as well. Another option is, again, solutions like Factors, which essentially bring your CRM data and website data into one place. So you're connecting your CRM and website to us. But the advantage is we actually have very strict contractual obligations in terms of how we kind of handle your data. And then we kind of connect to LinkedIn. So that has worked for a lot of enterprise customers where they just cannot connect to LinkedIn directly. But they are able to kind of do so through us, right? So they work with us, and then we send all of this data back into LinkedIn. Anything you've observed as well, AJ, in terms of legal challenges or security challenges like this?
Yeah, if the challenge is integrating your CRM with LinkedIn, we totally understand. But like Praveen, you said, you may still be able to do that integration through Google Tag Manager. So that's passing data directly from your website when someone fills out a form, pass that to LinkedIn, not from Salesforce, not from HubSpot. And so that may be an option. If none of those are an option, what you're going to be stuck with is the more that this war on cookies gets waged, the lower the match rate in your conversion tracking. So just expect it. Just know that right now you might be capturing and classifying 80% of your conversions. That number is just going to shrink over time, especially when Chrome gets rid of third-party cookies. You'll probably see a big hit there. But yeah, just expect that to decrease over time, and that's just what has to happen.
Got it. Another question is, what is the best approach to target a small audience of 1 to 5,000 on LinkedIn for niche products?
1 to 5,000. This is one of those cases where I might actually recommend maximum delivery bidding, um,
Okay.
because for such a small audience, if you're to bid manually, your bid essentially has to compete with all of the other advertisers who are bidding higher to reach those same users plus others. And so in this case, you're probably going to pay a lot for the interactions that you get, but by doing maximum delivery bidding, you can pretty much guarantee that that small audience is going to receive impressions. Whereas if you bid manually, you might find you have to keep increasing your bid to like $15, $16, $17 before LinkedIn starts actually delivering it. So max delivery might make sense in that case.
Got it. Understood. And again, from a objective perspective as well, would you have any recommendations for an audience of this size? What would be the best way to kind of reach them?
Yeah, it depends on the ad format, but if you're using LinkedIn's lead gen forms, obviously you have to use the lead gen objective. If I'm sending traffic anywhere on my website, I'm opting for website visits. If you're keeping that traffic on LinkedIn, then engagement, because at least you can pay by the click on that one.
Got it. But even then, brand awareness, you would still kind of stay away from. Okay.
Yeah, brand awareness
And
is awful.
okay. And so that just got me thinking about one more question. So what would be like an audience size which you say you should start with, at least 20, 30,000 users for your campaign to just uh, get off the ground?
Yeah, for my normal top of funnel campaigns, I like 20,000 to 100,000. That's a good range. If I start getting much under 20,000, which often happens with your retargeting and your ABM campaigns, it's okay. I just know on audiences that are that small, I'm probably going to have to bid higher to spend any sort of budget with them. But that's okay. There's still great reasons to want to target a small audience.
Got it. I think the last question, AJ, is, and I'll read it out here. Is there a difference between max delivery versus setting on impressions instead of clicks?
Oh yeah, totally. So there's two different settings in LinkedIn. There's how you bid, which is how you pay, and what LinkedIn attempts to optimize towards. So you could have it set to pay by the click, but what LinkedIn calls their optimization target type, that could be set to impressions. So your goal is saying, I'm only going to pay when someone clicks, but LinkedIn, I want you to try to show my ad the most to people who are, I don't know, there's not much of an optimization here, but show it to people who are likely to receive an impression. Usually you want to do it the other way around. If you have something that's high performing, you probably want to bid by the impression, because you know that you have a click-through rate over 1%, like a link click-through rate, and then optimize by impression. And that's going to get you, the math works out pretty nicely that way. I know I'm droning on.
Got it. Got it. Understood. So, okay. We've just got one more question coming in, and that's about follower gains. So if that is an objective, where does that stand within these strategies?
Yeah, if you're looking for followers, the very best ad strategy there is it's a dynamic ad called follower ads, and it shows only in right rail, only on desktop, but there's really only one call to action. You get very little text, and it says follow for more updates or whatever you want to put in, like I think you get something like 30 or 40 characters. That's the best way to pay for followers. But what we've found to be way more successful than that is organic invitations. So everyone who has admin access to the company page, you're a super admin there. LinkedIn gives you, I think it's 250 invites per month to use. So what I would do is I would get 2 or 3 people in the company where we say, for a limited time, we're going to give you company page access, and we want you to go and send your 250 invitations to people who are in our industry, people who might appreciate what we do, and send those out. Then you get tons and tons of invitations accepted, lots of new followers quickly, and they're free. Of course, you can always add on follower ads onto it to buoy it up, but that's the best way to increase follower count.
Very tactical question on that. So when you're sending that request to say for 250 users, would you recommend in terms of your give some value so that they actually feel the need to kind of follow you? So how do you actually kind of recommend you operationalize that? Is it just a request, or you give them a certain sort of offer?
The request is like you can't edit it at all. It's just
Oh,
like it just appears in their network tab where they can see like who has invited them to connect. There's another tab that's going to be just company pages inviting you. So there's not a whole lot you can do there. But even on the ad, you only get just a few characters. I think it's like 20 characters headline, 50 or 60 for the ad line. Try to describe the value your company page is going to bring to people in 50 characters. It's next to impossible. So it leaves you giving people like follow for weekly updates, and that's all you can give.
got it. Understood. Understood. Cool. Thanks a lot, AJ, for this. I think that is all the questions that we've got. As I said, everyone, please comment if there are other topics related to LinkedIn, creatives, new ad strategies, bidding strategies that you would want to kind of want us to cover. We're happy to kind of jump on another call and cover those as well. Both AJ and myself, we have invested heavily into LinkedIn as a platform. We're thinking every day about how to make it work better for all of our customers. Any suggestions, right? Like you might have tried out things which you have figured out, which you would want to kind of share with others as well. Please feel free to hit up either AJ or me. AJ, thanks a lot for doing this. That was like a power-packed session with a lot of actionable learnings. Thanks a lot.
You're so welcome. So happy to share advanced value. And please, if you're interested in hearing more of this, let us know. We'll definitely schedule a round two.
Yeah. And the last thing, LinkedIn at fanatics.com. Please do try that and check it out as well. Right. With that, we'll end the session for today. Thanks, everyone, and look forward to continuing the discussion in the comments. Yeah. See you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.